All right, so my name is Peta Brooks, and I'm the Director of Operations here at Spaces. Tonight, we will be covering our Satellite Fund program, how to apply, what to think about as you're putting your proposal together. Taya Spittle is on the call. She's our new curatorial coordinator and will be overseeing this project. So she will be leading us in the discussion tonight. I do want to let you all know that we're recording and we will be sending this out as well as the PowerPoint slides. Sorry, we'll be sending those out to you by email, those of you who have registered. And please, if you have any questions as we're going along, put them in the chat and I will be answering your questions in the chat while Taya continues to do the presentation. And at the end, we will do a Q&A. So if you do have questions after that, we'll go through some of the questions in the chat that maybe I haven't answered. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and turn it over to Taya.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peta. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Taya. My pronouns are she, her. So happy to be here and presenting about the Satellite Fund. So let's get started. So the Satellite Fund, what is the Satellite Fund? So the Satellite Fund is administered by Spaces and supported by the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts. It is a $12,000 grant opportunity for 5 Cuyahoga County artists, curators, and cultural producers to create a public visual art project in Cuyahoga County. Sorry, I'm just trying to move around there we go. Okay. This grant is not only for established visual artists in the community, but also for emerging artists, creative professionals, and any Cuyahoga County resident with a strong vision and demonstrated ability to complete the proposed project. The scope is purposefully broad. We want this opportunity to be as accessible and far-reaching as possible. A note about the Andy Warhol Foundation. The Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts Regional Regranting Program aims to support vibrant, under-the-radar artistic activity by working with leading cultural institutions in communities across the country. And in addition to financial support, Spaces will provide access to our on-site artist workshop, which is outfitted with tools and equipment to facilitate the production of processes. Myself, I will also assist awardees in securing a public exhibition or display space in Cuyahoga County if you don't already have one. Spaces will do additional marketing on our various platforms for your project, and awardees will also receive a Spaces level artist membership, which gives them free access to networking and artist professional development opportunities throughout the grant year, and cross-organization artist level memberships with Zygo Press, Morgan Conservatory, and Praxis Fiber Workshop. So our goals for the Satellite Fund are very much aligned with the Spaces mission of serving as the resource and public forum for artists who explore and experiment. The Satellite Fund emphasizes our dedication to artwork with strong conceptual grounding that expands the notions of conventional art and exhibition making, as well as the boundaries of the applicant's practice. This project-based funding opportunity is intended for applicants who have shown that the Satellite Fund will help them explore new ideas, methods of artistic production, and/or ways of experiencing art. We aim to support a broad range of a broad range of project types and career stages. So projects without an explicit public component do not qualify. That public component of the project is crucial to the ethos of the program. And pay special attention to how you work with your host venues, as the Satellite Fund projects must be independently initiated and managed by the artist. So they can't be part of that host venue's pre-existing programming. A note about visual art, what does that mean? So we see visual arts as an expanded field that encompasses many disciplines, but a project that is clearly theater, dance, or so on must have an obvious visual arts component. Proposed projects do not need to be a new initiative and can be a component of ongoing work. So this could include a particular issue of a magazine or a new web platform for an artist-run gallery. Eligible projects also include artist or activist projects, social practice projects, unincorporated artist-run galleries, independently curated exhibitions that are not part of a nonprofit's organization's programming, and artist-run festivals and events. These are just some examples. The list goes on, and we'll go through some examples at the end of my presentation. So who is eligible? First and foremost, applicants must be over the age of 18 years or older at the time of applying. Artists must live in Cuyahoga County to be eligible. Now, if you are applying as a collective, so as a team, at least half of that team must work and live in Cuyahoga County in order to qualify. And applications by a collective will need a lead point of contact who does live in Cuyahoga County. And those with confirmed future exhibitions at Spaces, Spaces staff, board members, contractors, their relatives, Satellite Fund jurors for that year, or those who have been awarded a Satellite Fund grant within the past 3 years are not eligible to apply. And the application is open from May 15th, so it's open now through July 15th, and applications are submitted through the online platform Submittable, which is super user-friendly. And I can also always help, troubleshoot any questions you may have about that. Each application includes a project title. Now, this can be a working title. It doesn't have to stay the same, but just give us an idea of what you're thinking about. Artist biography, project description. I forget what the word count on this is, but probably somewhere between 250, 500 words. And then the venue or public display. Now, this doesn't have to be confirmed for the proposal, but suggestions are needed. We'd like to see, and those can be multiple suggestions, doesn't have to be just one singular place. If you want and the actual project doesn't have to take place in only one, location. That location could even be a website online. We also need a timeline. I'll go through that in the next slide, what that looks like. We provide you with a document to list your timeline. A budget. We also provide you with that document. We'll go through that together. And then work samples and descriptions. So this could include up to 10 still images or preliminary sketches, or up to 6 minutes of video or audio segments. So those could be in multiple locations, or multiple pieces rather. So a note about the application process, it is in 2 stages. So the top 8 applicants will be invited to present their project in person to the panel of 5 jurors on August 8th and August 9th. And all applicants will know if they're moving on to the second round by August 2nd. So that is a pretty tight turnaround time. We need to give our jurors plenty of time to review the applications. So that's why it is, very quick. It's about a week between you finding out if you made the second round and when the interviews will happen. So we're putting those dates out now if you need to, kind of tentatively save those dates in the back of your mind. Now, the project timeline, this is just a screenshot of the form. The instructions are at the top here. So basically, we want you to estimate the time it will take from project start to public debut, as well as any deliverables related to your project. That could include, we definitely need the month and the year, production details, contractual starts, purchase materials, project installation, anything, this is your to-do list for your project. And we just want some insight. How are you thinking of going through these steps to actualize your idea? And then please keep in mind that the final awarded, after the second round, the final artists will be, or projects will be notified by September 1st. And all projects must be publicly displayed on or before July 31st of next year. So if you have a program that goes beyond July 31st, that's okay, but we just need for that like the initial opening to be done and completed on or by July 31st. Oops, sorry. And then the budget form. So this is pretty self-explanatory. This could include artist fees, which there's some FAQs, so frequently asked questions, section of the Satellite Fund website. I forgot to include this in the actual presentation I'm giving right now, but we do ask that you keep your artist fee to 20% of the $12,000 grant. So that would be $2,400. Just a little side note. And then, materials, publication costs, printing, all of that is separate, transportation, and then contractual services, that's separate from an artist fee. And then an important note about this budget form, you do not need to include in-kind expenses here, just your, outgoing costs. Now the scoring criteria, these are the criteria that our jurors will be assessing your project on. So feasibility, is the project well thought out and reasonably attributed? And does it encompass the full scope of the project? So that's really, we'll be looking at your kind of timeline form to get that idea. Do the work samples and sketches support the ability of the project to be successful? Does the applicant's past experience reinforce their ability to follow through with the project? So in your biography, you can, bring any experience that you have to the forefront in your biography if it's not explicitly clear. And then relevance. Will the project foster an exchange of ideas and perspectives within the audience? And is it aligned with the purpose of the Satellite Fund? Does this project represent new forms of art and/or exhibition making and/or art viewing? Does the application show that this project has local and/or global resonance? So really think about our community in Cuyahoga County. What is something of interest and needs to be talked about in our community? Quality. Is the conceptual relevance supported by a robust artistic project? Does it seem likely that the intended proposal will function in the manner described? Is the project backed by artistic rigor and ability? Now, remember, the Satellite Fund is for artists at all stages of their career, of all creative, producers, curators, anyone who is making a statement within visual art. How are you doing it, and what is the quality that you are presenting? So the jurors take an expansive approach to adjudicating aesthetics and artistic quality. So we have purposefully created a panel of jurors that come from lots of different backgrounds. Some are artists, some aren't artists, some are, cultural workers. Some have received the Satellite Fund in the past. So there is a diverse perspective on the panel. And then accessibility. So is the project open to the public? That is a requirement for the Satellite Fund. This can mean any number of things, including the display of the project in conventional art viewing spaces like an artist studio or home, as long as there are open hours posted. Sites for public artworks, businesses like a cafe or a restaurant, and commercial nonprofit galleries aside from spaces. So unconventional sites also may include abandoned storefronts, city infrastructure, signage, building facades, construction fences, of course, with the permission and proper permits granted. And proposed sites must be accessible to all members of the public, including individuals with disabilities. And I'll touch on this in the next slide, but we think of accessibility in a very broad way. So think about, you know, physical accessibility, language accessibility, financial accessibility, thinking about how can you include all of the publics in the Satellite Fund project. And then these are our jurors for 2025. Very excited. We have Joyce Morrow Jones, who was a previous Satellite Fund awardee. Christina Murray, who works with the Luminary, which is a nonprofit art space in St. Louis. Bobby Regans, who's an artist and cultural worker and runs Black Art Showcase. Daniel Sperry, who is an artist and also co-director of What Pipeline Projects in Detroit. And then Nikki Woods, who is an artist and also director of the Reinberger Galleries at the Cleveland Institute of Art. So project requirements. Again, completed on or prior to July 31st, 2026. So you have just shy of 1 year between it being notified that you have received the award and when you will need to have it completed, that project completed. It should be open and free to the public. And if you do want to collect, some sort of entrance fee, we ask that it is a suggested donation and that a free option is always there. ADA accessible. The grant funds will not roll over, so you need to make sure you complete everything by that 2026, July 31st, 2026 deadline. They can only be applied to the one project that you apply for with the Satellite Fund. If you are awarded, you will be able or be required to complete a PR, public relations form. It's really easy, just a small description of your project and an image, a midterm report, so status updates, how is the project going, what challenges are you facing, what support do you need from spaces, and then your final report, which is a holistic view of the project that you did. Usually it's done, after that initial, when your project is complete. And if it runs past July 31st, that's okay. we can always add to the final report later, but we do need that final report in by July 31st as well. And then awardees will receive $9,000 upon accepting their award, and then $3,000 upon the completion of the project and final report. So it's 75% upfront and then 25% at the end. And additional fundraising for projects is permitted, but the major portion of the funding does need to come from the satellite fund. So these are some examples of past awardees. So Gabrielle Banshoff from Shed Projects, she applied for a project called Semana Santa, which was a 6-week community-centered arts program celebrating the traditions of Holy Week through the lens of Mexican folk art. They did some community workshops, they had open hours, they had a film screening, which was hosted at Spaces. Spaces, we're happy to work with you on any like supportive programming, but the main event itself cannot take place here, but you could always do some sort of other event at Spaces. And then they also did a large scale burning of the Judas, which was really amazing. I wasn't able to see it, but PETA was, and she said it was really impressive. And then Alyssa Lazzini did field drawings, which was a series of free on location drawing workshops in 6 different neighborhoods. She really collaborated with the Cleveland Public Library system, also had an exhibition of her own drawings and then her participants' drawings as well at the main branch of the Cleveland Public Library. And then to have the project live on, she like donated the sketchbooks to other Cleveland Public Library branches so that the project could reach a larger audience. And then there's also an Instagram. So thinking through all the different, networks that Alyssa went through to really promote and then also think about archiving the project. So now I'm gonna open it up for questions. I'm going to stop sharing and would love
I
to
just
hear.
wanted to chime in. I was just writing back to Sherelle who asked, oh, sorry, Sherelle, you asked 2 questions. If awarded this grant, are there any grants in Ohio that we would not be eligible for? You can fundraise for your project, but the one thing, and I was just looking over like Andy Warhol's, what they say about the regranting program. And they said that grants are not intended to be just a small part of a much larger project, meaning the satellite fund is the project. You can fundraise around the satellite fund project, but if you're trying to raise like $50,000 for like a public art project, then this is not the appropriate source of funding for that. So it's really like the satellite fund project is what you're doing. But if you needed to get additional money from like Ohio Arts Council, or you were getting something from Assembly for the Arts, and it was all kind of going towards this project, then yes, you can do that. And then, sorry, I will take your question in 1 second, Mackenzie. And I just wanted to answer Sherelle's other question, which is, what is required for the presentation in the second round? Is there a recommended format we should present in? And is there any television screens or smart boards? We will have a projector and can have a computer. So if you want to bring your presentation on a flash drive, whether you want it, we can handle PowerPoint or Keynote. Just however you want to present that. Maybe you just have images. Maybe you just want to pull up your website and talk. I think it's kind of an open-ended, but remember that you're presenting to a panel of jurors that don't know you. So you would want to bring like maybe some samples of work and a real detailed explanation of what you want your project to be. And Mackenzie, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you both. This is really helpful. This question kind of speaks to what you were saying as far as I think you said like this project should be the satellite fund project, and it is kind of a broad description for things. So I'm trying to figure out maybe what project would be the best fit. So if it were between an ongoing thing that I kind of do either out of pocket for free for fun that I would like to expand on, or like a new contained project that I haven't been able to make any moves on because it's not something I can necessarily like piece together out of pocket, and the grant would make this larger thing a reality because that's kind of like the line that I'm on.
Yeah, I think it really both feel like they're accessible um, or applicable to the Satellite Fund. I think being that we're spaces, we also want artists to really push their practice and experiment. So I feel like the latter, the one where you haven't been able to, pursue because of funding, could be a great fit. So I would, reach for the stars. $12,000 is a lot. But we also know it doesn't fit every project. So think about what, I would really push yourself to consider the latter.
Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful. And also the requirements are clear, so I think considering what makes the most sense too when I really look at it. But thank you. It's helpful to know kind
Yeah,
of what jurors are bringing to the table.
of course. My pleasure. Great question.
I have a question again. Don't nobody else have one. I wanted to know if you would be available to look over our applications.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely
Cool.
would be able to give you some feedback. I'll put my email in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Brian, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I guess I had a question of the limits of what is considered visual art and not. Like, is sculpture considered sort of still visual art and stuff like that? So
Yep. Yep. Sculpture. Oh, sorry, you went on mute again, Brian. I don't know if you were done.
that was, yeah, that was really extending my
Oh,
question.
that was it. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I know there's like it's kind of interesting because, Taya and I were talking about this. There's a fine line between like performance art and we're saying like, it does have a visual component to it, right? Um, and so I think for something that maybe has like an installation or video with it and performance would be like, it would definitely check off all the boxes, but certainly like a sculptural uh, installation or just sculpture, like a show of sculptural work, is certainly a visual component. So, again, it can be, as Taya mentioned in the presentation, like it can be as um, fringy, like it could be a billboard. It could be a bunch of billboards with artwork on it. I mean, it can be a lot of different things, and we're really encouraging people to think about how you would insert art in various ways in different locations across Cuyahoga County. So yeah, it's kind of broad, but if you have questions specific to that, you're worried about your project having a visual component, just talk to Taya.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. And there's also, this is for everyone, on the Satellite Fund website, there is a section for past awardees. So you can look at other projects besides the ones that I highlighted that have won. So you can just get a sense of what is possible and what's been, done and got funded in the past.
Another question I have is if we are sort of going into a new area of practice or something we haven't sort of done publicly as much, what is a good way to sort of show that our capabilities in that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in that capacity, you could rely on like sketches or even like like mock-up sketches and then really rely on the description component of the image, if you will. Or you could do, like an audio segment and describe, like if you include just like a still photograph, you could also include like influence, kind of like this is like your own influence. And I know, Brian, that you mainly worked in photography. So, including like doing something with your previous work and presenting it in a way that has a through line to how you want to present this new idea, if that makes sense.
I think so. I have to think
Okay.
about it.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Happy to look at anything. And that goes for everyone on the call. Like this is a program that I feel really passionate about. And I actually, before I worked at Spaces 3 years ago, I was awarded the Satellite Fund for a project. So I have some insight as well.
What kind of things do you have available? I know you said you have some resources like that we could use inside of the
Yeah.
studio. What kind of things do you have
Yep.
there?
So we have a pretty well-equipped wood shop, and we have all the tools you could imagine for like installing art. We also have like projectors, we have speakers, we have a vinyl printer. I'm trying to think of other materials that we have, and also like not physical materials. Like I am someone who has like a writing background and editing background, so I can be someone who could help you, develop a statement, or we can work together to figure out how you're going to promote your project.
And,
And Peta, feel
um,
free to add. Yeah.
yeah, and I was also going to say you also become, like if you are awarded, you become an art pass member artist, and that also opens up availability to use some of our art pass collaborator. So you can use there are the fees associated with this to use like Praxis or Morgan, but you get the member discounts to use some of those spaces and to participate in some of those, to use their equipment. So there's those options. And then another option for those of you who aren't familiar, but hopefully you are, Case Western has the Think Box, which is open to the public. And it's sort of a DIY makerspace, I guess I would call it, engineering makerspace. They have a lot of equipment that's free for the public to use. So that's another resource in Cleveland that we encourage our Cuyahoga County resident artists, or anybody outside of the region really to use. So those are some of the resources. And as it pertains to like our projectors and our computers and screens like that, that would be dependent on whether we're using them for our own
Of course.
exhibitions. And we don't often lend those out because there's like, we would need to, this other contracts would need to be signed to protect that material, but we would do it if it was something that was required for your project and you really didn't have the means to rent that through the funding that we're giving you. But generally speaking, we would probably limit lending out the digital equipment, but certainly you could utilize all of the other things that we have on site.
Thanks, Peta. Awesome. I'm so glad so many people came.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.